say to you that if you accept circumcision, Christ will be of no advantage to you. I testify again to every man who accepts circumcision that he is obligated to keep the whole law. You are severed from Christ. You who would be justified by the law, you have fallen away from grace. For through the Spirit, by faith, we ourselves eagerly wait for the hope of righteousness. For in Christ Jesus, neither circumcision nor uncircumcision counts for anything, but only faith working through love. You are running well. Who hinders you from obeying the truth? This persuasion is not from him who calls you. A little leaven leavens the whole lump. I have confidence in the Lord that you will take no other view, and the one who is troubling you will bear the penalty, whoever he is. But I, brothers, still preach circumcision. But I still preach circumcision. Why am I still being persecuted? In that case, the offense of the cross has been removed. I wish those who unsettle you would emasculate themselves. For you who are called to freedom, brothers, only do not use your freedom as an opportunity for the flesh, but through love serve one another. For the whole law is fulfilled in one word: you shall love your neighbor as yourself. But if you bite and devour one another, watch out that you're not consumed by one another. The word of the Lord. All right, go ahead. Take a seat. So recently we've been receiving some complaints about my preaching. Apparently I've been too funny. So, I'm going to cut it back a little bit. Apparently I'm really not actually that funny. Good morning. Good to be in the house of the Lord with you all. My name is Whitcomb, if you haven't had the privilege of meeting. I'm the lead pastor here at Phos Church. And for the last several weeks, we've been walking through the book of Galatians, and now we're on week 10, and so we got 2 more weeks of Galatians, and we'll be done by Easter. Easter, we'll be transitioning to a new series that I'm super excited for. I don't know if we announced it today. I don't believe we did. The title of that series is going to be called Between Two Edens. And the idea that it's a design series. And so what we'll do is we'll talk about manhood and womanhood. We'll talk about marriage and sex and relationships. We'll talk about creation. We're going to talk about a whole wide variety of topics. And really that God has a really good design for all of it. And then humanity kind of really jacked it up, and all kind of in this in-between, and there seems to be confusion about what it means to be a man and what it means to be a woman in our culture today. So this is really a really prevalent time to preach on some of these issues, and we're going to be rooting ourselves in Galatians chapter 1 through 3, where we see design and we see fall, and we just try and say, okay, God, help us make sense of what we're seeing today in our world. And so, but before that, we still have a little bit of Galatians to finish up. And I'm excited because I just believe that this series is helping us as a church. And this isn't something like that we're going to graduate from. It's not like Galatians is done, we never talk about the gospel again. No, the gospel will be a continual thing that we want to be defined by. Just what happens that we need to define it properly. As we continue to move forward as a church, and we continue to say, hey, what is the good news that we want to tell our neighbors, that we want to tell our coworkers, that we want to tell our friends about? What is that good news? Is it be a better person? Is it try harder? Be better? White knuckle discipline it? No, because we don't believe that to be good news. And in fact, that's actually the thing Paul is writing to this church about, to tell them, hey, what you're buying into is a really bad idea. And he's rooted it all the way back to where the whole promise started with Father Abraham. And he pointed and said, hey, it never worked that way. Abraham was saved by faith. He wasn't saved by the law. Look at 430 years later. So why have you now put all this confidence, all this faith in this law, the thing that was actually given to you, that you might see that you're sick and that you're broken and you need a Savior? And only that was that Jesus Christ. He came, and he came to be your righteousness, that your righteousness on your own, the best days that you could have if you were trying to use that to barter for salvation. God would look at them and say, that's filthy rags. I want nothing to do with that. That's not to say that good deeds or moralism is, being moral is a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. But if you're using those as bartering chips with God to say, hey, I've earned favor with you, he's like, man, that's not the currency I accept. That's dirty stuff. I don't want that. I got a perfect, clean, unblemished sacrifice that was done on your account. His name is Jesus. Right? That's good news. That's really, really good news. And so we want to keep that as the focus of our church. We want to keep the gospel in focus. Because what's been so cool is, we began revitalizing the church a little over a year ago. We began to see, we're seeing people come in, we're seeing a lot of new faces. But we'll say, hey, this is what we're about. This is the message we preach. And as we see new people come in, as we see this church growing, I think we still have some level of excitement about that. I looked at you last week, I looked out and I saw people parking on the grass. I was super excited to see that as a problem. Just so you know, we are talking about getting a new parking lot. I'm getting quotes right now. We're working on it. I know we all hate that parking lot, so, but it will cost money, just FYI. But in general, we're running into some really cool problems. Our nursery getting overrun. That's a cool problem to have. Planet of the babies. They're just overtaking us all. My nephew leading the charge there. Being the big meatball that he is. But no, as of this weekend, as I was thinking about it, just being excited about what God's doing right here, right now. Just want to make sure that we're not getting lost, though, too, right? That growth, church growth is a good thing, generally speaking. It depends on how you define growth. Right? Because for the last year, what we've been trying to do is to say, hey, we're going to make disciples of Jesus Christ. We're going to preach the Bible in season, out of season. We want to make the Bible a big deal here. Right? That people would know and understand the person of Jesus and how he interacts in their life and how he can change and equip them for every good work. Because that's qualitative growth, right? That's the kind of growth that the Bible's calling us to, right? That we would make disciples, and that disciples make disciples, and then therefore now you start having this movement happening, and so that, yes, qualitative growth, I think, ultimately ends up in some form of quantitative growth, but we should never just look at quantitative growth and say, oh, something good's happening here. Because I listened to this interview one time by a church in Dallas called Watermark Community Church, and I think probably 15 to 20,000 people attend that church. Huge church, right? And the pastor, the senior pastor, former senior pastor, in an interview said, I never want anyone to believe that Watermark is successful because we've grown. He said, because cancer can grow. Right? And I remember hearing that, I remember thinking, okay, that's a really good idea. Like, we could grow something here. We could see more and more faces come in, but at the end of the day, what we're providing people is legalism or the law, and then we haven't really created anything beautiful here at all. We haven't seen anything really flourish here other than the stench of death. And so, ultimately, that, as we're finishing out the series, I just want to make sure that we're just on the same page here. We're not trying to grow an audience. We're trying to grow an army. To equip each other to go and wreak havoc on Satan in the places where we do live, work, and play. And for whatever reason, it seems like this idea of building an audience is starting to grow in modern Western evangelicalism. Right? Like the point of church is just to get a bigger building and more butts and more of a budget, and then we can create all this and feel good about ourselves. And I don't see that in the scriptures. I don't see that as the church. I don't see it as we've been called into. That doesn't seem like life to me. I think the last thing that we need to have in Christianity in America today is just another room filled with another audience. No, we need to equip people to go wage a war. Satan loves it. All we do is sit in this building under these four walls. There's as many people in there as you want. There's thousands if you want. But as long as you keep it in here, and guess what? There's 7 billion people out in the world. And north. And a few thousand people, go ahead, enjoy yourselves. And so, ultimately, we've touched on so many things when we view Christianity as just this thing to watch. And it probably sounds like a broken record, but church is not something we watch. Something we're part of, something we've been called into. And again, I think Paul would look, as he wrote through this church, and don't you, the thing he's going to talk about, the freedom that Christ has set you free. Why do you put this yoke on you? Why aren't you living into the freedom that Christ has called you into? And so I do wonder, I begin to think, okay, if Paul could walk into a church in America today in 2022, what would the message he would say with us? What would he say with us? And that's what would the messaging be, would the sermon be, then why aren't you living into the freedom that Christ has called you into? Well, why have you settled for a Christianity that's far from the gift that He's offered us? Well, and so we're not here, again, we can't create a culture of building an audience. And so one of the things, it's over a year ago now, I think 2 years ago. 2 years ago this summer was when I started showing up to what was then called Parkside Community Church and began preaching sermons with the congregation just to see if God might do something here. If we were going to do a rebirth and a revitalization. And so I began coming in, preaching messages. I hadn't said yes, I was coming yet. The church hadn't voted that they wanted some young 26-year-old punk pastor who didn't know a lick about what he was doing to come in and lead the charge. But then there began this mutual, yes, God's working here, God's moving here, let's see what might happen here. And then as that happened, one of the first things we decided as a transitional leadership team was that we were going to shut down the church for a month, renovate the building, because if you weren't in here before our launch, and this is not to be offensive to anyone that was here before launch, but it was 1970s in here. It was. And now it's 2022. We're chic, we're modern, we're hip, we're cool. If you see Hebrews Cafe, we got a cappuccino machine. We were running it. But that being said, I remember walking around and saying, okay, how are we going to best utilize the resources that we have? And one of the things, we came in here and we started looking at the lighting. And there was an electrical company, I don't remember who exactly it was, but he started looking and he said, yeah, we can put in these lights up here that will shoot onto the stage, and they can go every which way, you can have all these different colors, and then he said the price on it, and my jaw just nearly dropped. Like, that's how much it costs. And so, A, no. And B, why would we need that? Ultimately, really, I mean, and so my fear is when you create a huge emphasis on production in church, the natural byproduct then would be to build an audience. Right? So we don't want to create a concept here. You've never been called to come and learn it. Now, I hope that when you're worshiping, I hope that you are singing. I hope that you're lifting your praise to God. I hope that you're not just mesmerized by the singers up here. We have some great singers at this church. God has blessed this church with some great musicians, and they have talents and gifts, and they're offering to the Lord to help lead us in that. But man, I tell you, you better be standing there worshiping the King because He's worthy of it. The band's not worthy of your worship. I'm not worthy of your worship. He is. And so you don't come and you don't stand, you don't listen and watch. But you participate in. But you may look at the word of God as it's being proclaimed and say, okay, God, you are so beautiful and you're so good to give us your word and reveal yourself to us. And I want to punch on this because you've invited me in and I'm going to live in the freedom of being known and loved by you. That you give me a plan and a purpose for my life. So, that was my little starter. I should probably get going into them. So the other thing what we want to do, too, is we don't want to just come in here and listen to a message and say, okay, now I've got the answer to the questions that I've been puzzled with. Right? Because as Paul writes today, he's going to write to this church. What he's not doing is saying, hey, here is the gospel. Let me define the gospel so that you have a definition for it. But no, he's taking it out of fear and he's putting it into practice and he's saying, this is how the gospel is lived out. That the gospel is for freedom that Christ has set us free. And he's actually talking about life. He's talking about living. He's not talking about, hey, you answered wrongly on that written test. No, he's saying, hey, the way you are living makes no sense with what Christ has done for us. So Paul hasn't come in to correct to try to get them to, have some concept. No, he wants to see life transformation. He wants to see them to, begin to see God for all that He is, and that it will change how they live. And so I think the more that we can begin to make Christ a big deal, the more we can emphasize Christ here. It will free us up. It will cause us to live. It will cause us to run. It will cause us to go wreak havoc on Satan. Right? Because don't read the Bible in a way to answer your life's problems. Maybe that's another way I want to say. Don't read the Bible to answer your life's problems. Read the Bible so that you might see and understand God. Read the Bible so you might see and understand God. And watch how your knowing of God, your understanding of Christ, His personhood, His character, His nature, who He is. Watch how that might deal with your questions, and watch how much little you start caring about those questions that you once had when you start seeing God clearly for who He is and what He's done. We're going to play a part in this army, and we're going to wreak havoc on Satan. Because if we just create a culture here where we come in and we walk and we learn the right things, so we can repeat the right things, we can say the right things, the transformation doesn't happen, and we don't live. We can kind of go back right into what we were talking about last week. If you were here with us last week, we kind of talked about this idea that what we've done, or what the people in Galatia were doing was, okay, we know the promise. We know what Jesus has come to do. We know what He's afforded us. But we'll take it from here. Right? We're going to add Jesus plus. And they fill in the blank. And they say, Jesus plus circumcision. Then I'm going to fully live. Then I'm going to fully get it. Then I'm going to have the inheritance. And no. You're missing the whole promise. You need the history lesson? Remember what happened with Abraham and Sarah once they received that promise? Well, guess what? They tried adding to it right away, and it never worked. And we're watching this pattern repeat itself over and over and over, and yet what we've continually seen is that you can't add this equation. It's Jesus plus nothing equals everything. Jesus plus nothing equals belonging. And that was the equation. That's the thing that Paul was trying to get the listeners to understand, to believe. But if we come into church and we view it as, okay, I'm just coming in to get the right facts, I'm just getting the right information, I'm just going to get it all up in here. Then I get to look at Jesus, I get to look at God and say, I've got it from here. We can even treat the Bible that way. We can even say, okay, I understood it. I've got it. Thanks. So I'll take it from here. You know what Jesus actually says about that in Matthew chapter 7? Something really can come up as offensive. But Jesus would actually say that person that would hear, that would know all the right answers, that would have it all figured out, but to not do, to not allow the healing to move to action, not allow the transformative work to take place, so maybe you're a fool. Call you a fool. You say you built your house on not a firm foundation. You begin putting it on you, begin putting it on your knowledge. No, but you've been called to go well beyond just our hearing. We got to allow this word to transform our lives. And maybe we hear the call, right, that we've been called into, this idea of living free, fully into what God has called us into. And maybe you hear and say, hey, I understand that I've been called into something, right? We haven't just been saved from something, but we've been saved to something. Not that we just now no longer want to live in the world, but that we want to live for Christ, too. Right? You don't just put off the old man, but you put on the new man. That you become a new creation. There's new life to be had. And so, maybe you understand all that. Maybe say, hey, I fully get it. I know I've been saved from something. I know I've been saved to something. But man, this seems like such a hefty call. Right? You know, to give up all my life? Right? To surrender myself to Him? To lay it all down and say, I'm yours for the using? Use me how you would, Lord? And that's a high calling, is it not? And that's not something that you've been called to progress to. Jesus said at the very beginning of the ministry, if anyone would desire to come and follow after me, before coming, if you have that desire, you must deny yourself, take up your cross, and then come and follow. It's upon entry that Jesus calls us to this level of sacrifice. And yet, you hear that and say, man, that is such a high calling. To give up my life for what God might use me for. I want to say something real quick before we jump into the text. We are all going to give our lives to something. We're all going to give our lives to something. You're going to give it to Jesus. You're going to give it to your career. You're going to give it to your finances. You're going to give it to a relationship, a spouse, your kids. You'll give your life to something, I promise you that. And it'll cost you your time, your energy, and your resources. It'll cost you all of it. And here, Jesus isn't being around the bush. Like, Jesus is pretty clear with the Christianity. Like, yes, there's a real cost to following him. If you hear me say, I don't know if I could ultimately give myself to that. At times it seems scary. It is. If someone tells you the Christian life isn't scary, they're probably not living it. If they tell you that it's not messy, they're probably not living it. But I can tell you it's a beautiful adventure to follow Christ and his plan. To that whole life, that picking up your cross and following him, there's really no greater adventure than that. It's far from boring. And it's usually very messy. In our text this morning, we see the Apostle Paul talk about this, right? He just puts a pin in the last argument that he made. He's like, okay, I'm talking about Abraham for a little bit. As I've unveiled, as you've seen the false teaching that has come into your gathering. He goes, man, it shouldn't even be a fight. It shouldn't even be a debate. Like, the real Christian life is this. That's what he's going to say today. He's going to tell us about the real Christian life. And he's going to say, hey, here are some of the warnings that you're going to have to be aware of. Now that you know the plan of the enemy, now that you can see it, now that you've found the false teaching that has expressed it to you through the last 4 chapters, here's what you need to know about living today. And Paul is just giving them information to know for it's at, right? He's teaching them about life. Paul in this moment is going to address a few things about how it would actually look to live free. To no longer experience this weird form of Christianity that these Judaizers are perpetuating in their gatherings. Like, okay, that you should have tasted how bitter that was if you tasted the sweetness of Christ. We saw, if you have your Bibles, look with me in Galatians chapter 5. We're going to start in verse 1. For freedom, Christ has set us free. Stand firm, therefore, and do not submit again to a yoke of slavery. Right here, this is Paul's big idea for the whole letter. There's nothing else in Galatians. There's nothing else in Galatians. Don't miss this. Galatians 5:1 is the theme. It's his big idea. It's freedom that Christ has set you free. He not set you free to go be bound by something else. He didn't let you get free to go be bound by the commandments. Set you free for freedom's sake. Now, you see right out of the gate, for freedom, like those first words, for freedom. In the original Greek, there would have been another word there. For the freedom. Paul is talking about a specific form of freedom. He's talking about a general, run with it, take it however you want to. He's talking about a specific freedom here. Our English structure, sentence doesn't know what to say for the freedom. Christ has set us free. But Paul is talking about a specific freedom here that we've been free to. And I know in 2022 we wanted to think about liberty is just chasing your heart's desires. Hey, if it's a passion of mine, then it must be good. No, it's not. It's not. But that's how we view freedom. That's what we think liberty is. It's just the idea to be able to run wild. Man, I'm telling you, you let somebody run wild that can be really destructive. Right? Not putting any parameters on things. Or you let a little kid go run wild and free in the front yard. Just how good of an idea that is. No, it's not a good idea. The freedom that's being talked about is all freedom from tyranny of having to earn our own way before God. It's freedom from sin and guilt and condemnation, freedom from the penalty and power, and ultimately, eventually, the presence of sin. Right? That sin no longer has to have a hold on you, but that you've been freed from that hold. That's the freedom that we should all be rejoicing on. Isn't that great news? Now, you turn on the news, you watch the destruction going on in the world. Even here in our own backyard, right here in America, or around the world, right? There's war and chaos and there's madness, and everybody's just like losing their minds. And I'm telling you, that is a byproduct of sin. You don't live in a Genesis 3 world, that stuff doesn't happen. And to be told that one day, ultimately, sin no longer has power, no longer has control, no longer has a presence, Surely that's good news. Surely that's good news. I remember asking a few people before this series, when you hear the word freedom, what do you think? Because I understood Galatians, generally speaking, but before this series started, and just saying, okay, we're going to be talking about freedom. And I know that's a big idea. It's a big theme in Galatians. So how then would you define freedom? And the definition that we've used over and over throughout this series is that freedom in and of itself ultimately lies in obedience to Christ. And I remember when I was told that freedom would be living in obedience to Christ and thinking, okay, I have to obey. That means I'm free? Like that seems very counterintuitive. It doesn't seem like you're free if you're called to obey. But here's the message of Christianity. The message of Christianity is not telling you that you have to obey. The message of Christianity, the message that Jesus says, is the way to life is following me. Not telling you have to. You're fully in it. Go chase your wildest dreams. Just telling you that the way to life, the way to freedom, the way to live fully isn't how God designed it to work, people. Like we covered that in Hosea. Right? When we're out of the Gomer and we're running every which way and we want to go off the path, what God has actually done is He's aligned it with rose thorn bushes so that you might run into that thorn and say, hey, okay, maybe getting off of God's path wasn't the thing for me. That actually leads you back to the path. And so pain is not an idea of God saying, I'm mad at you. He's saying, no, I'm leading you back to the place where you need to be. And so, yes, Jesus is in His calling to follow Him. He's telling us that's the way to life. That's freedom. That's it. This answer at times seems too simple for people to accept. We only want to add to this, right? It can't truly just be following Jesus. There must be more to it. There must be certain behavioral things, certain measures that I have to hit in order to be fully from unforgiven, right? I've got to do something. It can't just be following Jesus. I want to earn in some way so that I can feel good about myself. I know Paul thinks his definition is too simplistic for his readers. Right? This brings us the very next thing in verse 1. Jesus, stand firm. Stand firm. There are going to be people that are not going to like this message. There are going to be people that are going to all assault on this message. Stand firm. Because this is freedom. The great evangelist D.L. Moody illustrated this point by quoting an old former slave woman in the South following the Civil War. Being a former slave, she was confused about her status and asked this. Now, is I free, or ben I not? When I go to my old master, he says, I ain't free. And when I go to my own people, they say I is. And I don't know whether I'm free or not. Some people told me that Abraham Lincoln signed a proclamation, but my master says he didn't. He didn't have any right to. See, many Christians are confused on the same point. That Jesus Christ has given them the Emancipation Proclamation, but their old master has told them that's not true. The old master says that they must continue to be a slave because of the legal relationship they have. They live in bondage to their old master because he's deceived them. That's what legalism does. It's a deception. It's this idea, hey, I know what Jesus is saying that you've been free, but I'm telling you haven't. Get back in here. You are not good. You're broken. You're dirty. And in order for you to get there, you got to do this. Jesus, no. I've cleaned you. And you can't get to the Father unless I'm the one who cleans you. The law never could. The law will just make you more dirty. I promise you that. So Paul ends verse 1 with, don't let the happen. Don't go back to that yoke of slavery that you once had on you. There's so much more to life than that. When Jesus finds my freedom, he dealt with it at the cross. And so these next few verses, Paul's going to go on and talk about the dangers of adding anything to Jesus. And when adding ultimately becomes a yoke. Look, I, Paul, say to you that if you accept circumcision, Christ will be of no advantage to you. I testify again to every man who accepts circumcision that he is obligated to keep the whole law. You are severed from Christ. You who would be justified by the law, you have fallen away from grace. When we embrace the law as our rule of walking with God, you have to let go of Jesus. You can't hold on to both of them. It's never worked. When we attempt to earn it ourselves, that's what the Galatians were doing. They were attempting to earn themselves. You can't hold on to Christ. You can't say, Christ is enough for me, and simultaneously saying, I'm going to do this. Because then you're saying he's not enough. You're severed from Christ. In the Galatians, right here, he's talking about receiving circumcision. That ritual of testifying that a Gentile was coming under the law. That's what a Gentile was saying, hey, I'm going to go through this idea of circumcision. And then, yes, I'm coming under the law. That's what I'm communicating. And what they're communicating is that, okay, then I have to earn this. Then I have to work for it. And it meant that they no longer trusted in Jesus as their righteousness, but trusted in themselves. So Paul can say, Christ will be of no advantage to you. The moment you go and you say, I'm going to make circumcision the route that I'm going to go, Paul said, hey, Christ is no advantage of you. And I just imagine those people that he's talking to. And I picture them almost for a moment as if they're standing at the side of the cross. And they're standing and they're watching Christ's death happen. His bloodied and bruised body hanging there, beaten, broken, suffering, and he's crying out, it is finished. And Paul would come up to those Judaizers and he'd walk up and say, hey, I know what he just said, that it is finished, but it's not for you. It's not for you. The moment you make this about the law, the moment you put yourself under it, the moment you go right back into circumcision, what he just did is nothing for you now. Because you've looked for something else to be your righteousness. It is finished was done for those that would surrender themselves to him and follow his lordship and his rule and his reign, and that would follow him. And say, his righteousness is enough for me. That sacrifice was enough for me to deal with my guilt, my shame, my brokenness, my sin. It was enough, fully, freely forgiven because of what Jesus has done. But that gift is no benefit to those that would use the law as a means to justify themselves. And Paul says, hey, the whole danger in this whole circumcision thing is actually it's not just circumcision. Right? Because now you've entered back under the law, so it's not just a matter of being circumcised, but now it's a matter of keeping the whole law. And if you look back and you see people trying to, you see this is a really bad idea. You see this doesn't work. Now you're not called to just this one little item, but you're called to something so much greater. In accepting circumcision, you're accepting a new master, is what Paul is saying. And then the greatest danger of embracing another master other than Christ is that look what Paul says. You have been severed from Christ. You've been cut off. And you've fallen away from grace. Now, does that mean you're not a Christian if you've fallen away from grace? The phrase does not mean that if a Christian sins, that he falls from grace and therefore loses his salvation. That's not the sense of what Paul is saying. This is the sense of to fall into grace, that you have the ability to fall into grace, which would be to have a spirit of repentance. That in order to repent, if you were to repent for the sins that you've committed, that you'd be met with grace, that you'd be met with this unmerited favor, this forgiveness of sins. But on the reverse end, you have the ability to fall out of grace, to fall from grace. And seen by this context will be to fall into legalism. One scholar puts it this way, or to put it another way, to choose legalism is to relinquish grace as the principle by which one desires to be related to God. So Paul doesn't mean you sin, you're out. That's not the point of what he's saying. He's saying, now, people can fall into legalism, and to fall into legalism would be to fall from grace, because those are polar opposites. You don't get to live under the banner of grace and the banner of legalism. It's going to be the one or the other. You know, there are a lot of times where you see in the Bible lines getting drawn. And I know we live in 2022 and we're being inclusive to everything and every idea. So many times in the Bible, what you'll see is that's actually a really bad idea. It's a really bad idea. And it would be unloving to just say, yes, follow your pursuits, follow your hearts, follow your passions, when so many times Jesus will draw a line in the sand and you're either with me or against me. You don't get to play both sides. So you don't get to have your grace and walk around like a self-righteous jerk. It doesn't work that way. Look back at me in our text. We're going to pick up in verse 7. You were running well. Who hindered you from obeying the truth? This persuasion is not from him who calls you. A little leaven leavens the whole lump. I have confidence in the Lord that you will take no other view, and the one who is troubling you will bear the penalty, whoever he is. But if I, brothers, still preach circumcision, why am I still being persecuted? In that case, the offense of the cross can be removed. I wish those who unsettle you would emasculate themselves. Paul, remember, they're starting the faith, right? He says, you are running so well. Upon those, it's not enough to just start well. But you can start well and still have danger of falling from grace. But Paul then asks the question because he is confused. He says, hey, I saw how you began running. I saw how things were working right out of the gate. You heard the gospel. You believed it. Life was happening. Who hindered you? Who hindered you from obeying the truth? That's Paul's question. So Paul knows the message that's been moving around town, right? He knows that there's Jesus and there's Jesus plus. He hears that. Doesn't necessarily know who the big shooters are, right? He clearly says he's not calling out anybody specifically, and Paul doesn't have a problem doing that. So he is generally saying, hey, there are people that are perpetuating this message. I'm not quite sure who they are, but I hope something's coming their way. But it says that these teachers are persuasive. You see that in verse 8? That the persuasion that has happened is not from the Lord. There is an element here that Paul is writing, and he's saying, hey, these teachers are persuasive. And why I say that, and why you can, I think, definitively know this, he says, hey, you started running really, really well. Now, you really got it. You were going to every single Bible study. When the church doors were open, you were in them. You were having people over your house over dinner and praying over people. And, I walked around your house a few times. You had a bunch of, crap signs with Bible verses on them. You got it. You were nailing it. Somebody hindered you. And I think in order for that to happen, they had to be persuasive. They had to take things that you were pretty confident on and twist it and manipulate it just a little bit. Just a little bit. He says, just a little bit leavens the whole lump. Or just twist the gospel a little bit. Right? Jesus say, hey, yes, accept Jesus as your Savior. Accept Him for the forgiveness of sins. But also just do these little other things. There's nothing wrong with these little other things, right? There's no bad little things. We've always done them, right? But we're God's people. We're God's chosen people. So, see how it was just very minute? And Paul said, you bought in. You were persuaded. And I think the message for many of us, the challenge for us then, know our Bibles. Know our Bibles. Hey, we are not moving forward into the world with a more biblically literate generation. We are continually getting more biblically illiterate. One influential pastor said, I believe we're living in the most biblically illiterate generation to ever walk the face of the planet. And that's scary. So I have passion for the next generation, and that's why I have passion for God's Word. That's why we walk the books of the Bible, because I want us to be what I want for this church is us to be theological monsters. Just beasts. Right? And we look at false doctrine and say, that's garbage. I don't buy that. I want you to be able to sniff it. I want you to be able to spit it out when you taste it. Right? You're going to have people that are going to, yes, with the best of intentions, trying to manipulate the truth of God's Word. And if you don't know it, if you're not confident in it, then it can be so easily taken for a ride. One pastor in Dallas, Matt Chandler, said, if you are not confident in the authority of the Scriptures, then you will fall for anything. So we've got to be tethered to the truth of God's Word. We've got to know it. Because, yes, it's so easy for persuasive individuals to come in. It could be your coworker, it could be a family, it could be friends. It's just a little bit off. And here, I think you even take that same principle, and even in the life of a church. Right? It's just one person now starting to buy into this weird, radical theology. It doesn't take long for that to start moving around. So I think it's so utterly important that we know God's word, that we know who he is, that we're for someone to speak against his character and his nature. We say, hey, no, that's not true. I didn't know him. I think about your closest people in your life, your family, your friends, your spouse, your kids. You know their character, right? You know their nature. So if someone were to say something that wasn't true about them, you can say, no, that's not them. With such a greater intentionality when we be that way with Christ. And when someone would speak against his character, someone would speak against his nature, we say, no, I know him. I've walked with him. I love him. That's not true. And so Paul, the next few verses, begins to show the frustrations that he has towards these individuals, the individuals perpetuating this message, and he uses some very strong language, right? Like, he's kind of hoping in a way upon them. It's kind of weird that you put that in the scriptures, Paul. Might be something you want to so deep down and not tell anybody about. But no, Paul says, no, I hope some things come their way. So much so, look at the words he uses in verse 12. He wishes that they would emasculate themselves. That word there literally talking about mutilation. A little graphic for church. I said I wasn't going to use the word penis, but then I said, no, we need to. Because it's what he's saying. Come on. Something you wouldn't want to do. But he's saying it's that serious. So just to allow this little bit of false teaching in here, you do whatever it takes to get that out of here. He's talking about cutting it off. We were, so that I can't go over it. Paul does not believe legalism to be safe. Paul does not believe legalism to be safe. I know there's always this tension, this balance between legalism and license, and we want to find somewhere in the middle, right? We call it liberty. Paul's talking about liberty throughout Galatians. There's balance, right? You don't go off and believe you can live any way that you want to, but you're also not looking for your actions to get you right with God. And so there's this element of, okay, well, what does this actually look like? And I've heard over and over, people say, well, if I had to choose one, I would choose legalism because at least it seems safer. At least it seems like I'm being right, I'm being moral, I'm being good. And from an earthly perspective, there's probably benefit to leaning more towards legalism than license. I'll give you that. But when it comes to your soul and where you're going to spend eternity, there's nothing safe about legalism. It will damn you to hell. It will. You start looking to the law to purchase for you what it never could. And watch when you get to the heavens and say, but didn't I cast out demons? Didn't I share my testimony with my neighbors? What about the Bible study I started at work? God, depart from me, I never knew you. You don't use that as bartering chips to get right with God. And so there's nothing safe about legalism. Paul says so much so, cut it off. He used something very grotesque to make a point. That's why I almost didn't say that word. It was pretty weird to say. But it needs to be a point. Legalism is never okay. And now in this final breath of Scripture, our Scripture today, where Paul is closing out a thought, he's talking about Christian liberty. Verse 13, for you are called to freedom, brothers. Only do not use your freedom as an opportunity for the flesh, but through love serve one another. For the whole law is fulfilled in one word. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. But if you bite and devour one another, watch out that you are not consumed by one another. Paul says, hey, don't use your freedom to be reckless. It has not been a license to go and act any way that you want to. Now that you got to get out of jail free card. And just because you have that doesn't mean you're going to live any way that you want to. In fact, it's the exact opposite. It isn't that you get to act any way that you want to. The witness test of your liberty is love. Does this help me love my brother, my sister? Does this help me love my neighbor? Does it help me love God? Like when you're wondering, okay, is this something that I can live in? Is this something I can walk in? Because I like controversy. I'll use this as an example because I'm sure people would disagree with where I land, and there will be people that agree with where I land. And so let's just have fun as we close. The idea of drinking alcohol, probably a hot button issue for some people, depending on where you grew up, depending on your family, depending on a wide variety of issues. I would say, in the authority of God's word, that drink can be a good gift of God to you. Just believe that. And I'm open to discussions about that. But generally, that's where I've landed in the scriptures. I believe it can be a good thing for you. I believe it can stir your affections. But I also believe, though you've been allowed to, and this can be a free, good gift to you. If you have a brother or sister that would struggle with that, you've not been called to exercise that liberty, because that would not be loving to a brother or sister in Jesus Christ. And so, yes, your liberties might be different. All of our liberties might be a little bit different. To say, hey, I can enjoy this. I can do this to the glory of God. I can do this. My affections can be stirred for Him. And I might be able to do something that you can't. You might be able to do something that I can't. But ultimately, you use your liberty to love God and love people. And that's the litmus test. Is this going to help me love God, and is this going to help me love people? So I'm done being controversial. That's what Paul is landing the ship this morning. Yes, be free, but understand that freedom isn't at the expense of people and their soul. If you're here this morning and you just say, hey, I've never given my life to Jesus, I've never experienced this freedom that you're talking about. I've lived my life with ideas and a worldview that said, in order for me to get to God, then what I have to do is I got to work really, really hard. I got to, outperform my good behavior. My good behaviors need to outperform my bad behaviors. I need to make it to church this amount of times. I got to do this and that, and then okay, then God and I are cool. And you felt the pressure of that. You felt the weight of that. You said, hey, I can't hold up underneath all of this. You can't. None of us can. None of us can ever hold up on our own, with our own strength and our own merits to say, okay, I've done enough to be good enough for God. But Jesus has. Is that invitation to be free? To really live in the fullness of the inheritance that God has offered you in Jesus Christ? It's an offer today. And it's a really simple offer. And it's also, once you said yes, once you've surrendered your life to Jesus, there is this element of, yes, I'm going to go pick up my cross, I'm going to go die with Him. I'm not telling you it's always going to be easy. I'm not going to tell you that you're going to have every wildest dream and passion of yours fulfilled. The Bible doesn't teach that. In fact, I look at the people that did say yes to Jesus, and they lived really, really hard lives. Throughout church history, you see the same thing. And so don't think I'm offering you a fantasy, but I'm offering you what the Bible offers you, and that's the fullness of life. So Jesus came to offer the fullness of life. We're told that if we were to confess our mouth and believe in our hearts that God raised Jesus from the dead, we would be saved. In that belief, what we're saying is, you are enough for me, and I don't have to be. I don't have to perform. I don't have to do it. I don't have to look at the cross and say,